In this explainer, we're diving into a really unique, faith-based framework for dealing with bad habits. It's a spiritual take that suggests the fight isn't really about willpower. It's about something much, much deeper.
So let's just start with this big question. When we're stuck in a bad habit, are we just making a series of bad choices? Or, like our source material asks, is there something more fundamental going on underneath the surface?
And to get a sense of the stakes here, get a load of this number. $600 billion. That's what the source estimates is the annual cost of just treating bad habits in the US. I mean, that's a staggering figure. It really shows you this is not some small, niche problem. It's everywhere.
Okay, so to really get the solution this framework offers, we've got to first understand how it defines the problem itself. And it all starts with this idea that there's a spiritual dimension to our habits and our addictions.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Our source doesn't just define addiction as, a psychological compulsion. It uses a much stronger word, enslavement. The idea is that we are always serving something, whether we realize it or not.
And this idea, well, it's the cornerstone of the whole framework. We're always slaves to the one we obey. You're either serving patterns that lead to destructive outcomes, what the source calls sin, or you're serving patterns that lead to life and freedom, or righteousness. And according to this view, there's just no middle ground.
Okay, so if addiction is a kind of enslavement, how in the world do we end up there? Well, the source material lays out a very specific 4-step downward journey. It's like a spiral.
Okay, let's dive into this. It's called the FDDA framework. It's an acronym for foolishness, disobedience, deception, and then finally, addiction. You can think of it as a roadmap, just, a roadmap leading to the wrong destination.
It all kicks off with what the source calls foolishness. And we need to be clear, this isn't about being smart or dumb. It's about living a life with no real structure, no guardrails. It's like you're just driven by what feels good in the moment without any guiding principles.
Well, when you're living like that, it's pretty easy to slip into the next step, disobedience. Basically acting against what you know is right. But here's the kicker. It's not just about breaking a rule. The source argues this act opens the door to something called sin's deceitfulness, which is like a virus that starts messing with your thinking.
And that deceitfulness, it starts building these mental fortresses. These are lies we tell ourselves to justify the habit. And when we believe those lies, it just reinforces the behavior. And that creates what the source calls a whirlpool of treason that pulls you down and down into the final state of addiction.
Okay, so that sounds pretty bleak, right? But here's the good news. If there's a clear path in, this framework says there's an equally clear path out. And it all hinges on one single pivotal moment. And that moment, that turning point, is called repentance. Now, this is not just about feeling sorry or saying, oops, my bad. In this framework, it is an active, powerful decision. It's a total 180-degree turn. You're changing your mind, your will, and your direction. It's the moment you decide to get off that dead-end road for good. And making that U-turn, it's absolutely crucial. According to the source, this act of confessing and turning away creates what it calls a platform of mercy. Think of it as clearing the ground so you can actually start building something new. So once that foundation is laid, the source gives us a counterattack. It's a structured strategy designed to walk you right back out of that darkness and into freedom.
This is the RTOW strategy: repentance, truth, obedience, and wisdom. It's designed to be the mirror image of that path into addiction, to methodically reverse the damage.
Now, this next part is a really, really important distinction. Repentance is what gets you started. It gets you turned around and facing the right direction. But it's not actually what sets you free. As the source points out, it's the truth you discover next that ultimately breaks the chains.
So how do you find that truth? Well, this is one of the most fascinating parts of this whole system. It actually presents a formula for truth. The idea is that the lies keeping us trapped usually aren't 100% false. They're actually a truth that's been twisted, distorted. So to find the real truth, you just have to identify the distortion and remove it.
And this cable is a perfect example of how that works. Look at the lie. Simply calling Jesus Lord will take me to heaven. The distortion is that one little word, simply. Remove it, add the necessary action, and living to please the Father, and suddenly a passive lie becomes an active, liberating truth.
So, once you're armed with that truth, every time temptation comes knocking, you're faced with a really clear choice. The source frames it as this trade-off. On one side, you've got momentary ecstasy and fleeting pleasure that leads to prolonged guilt. On the other, you've got lasting peace, security, and confidence.
And that brings us to step 3, obedience. And really, all this is acting on the truth when it matters most, right in that moment of pressure. It's where knowing the truth turns into actually living in freedom.
All right, let's pull all these pieces together now. What we have here are two opposing frameworks. One pulls you down into bondage, and the other one lifts you right up into freedom. It's a complete system for transformation. So, to recap the strategy, it all starts with repentance, that conscious U-turn. That opens the door to discovering the truth by picking apart the lies you believe. Then comes obedience, actually acting on that truth when the heat is on. And finally, you build wisdom, which is all about adopting new strategies to stay free for the long haul.
When you boil it all down, the central argument here is simple, but it's also pretty profound. It's that our habits aren't just rooted in what we do, they're rooted in what we believe. The source says wrong believing is what puts us in bondage. So it follows that right believing is what sets us free. And that leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. What if the real fight against our worst habits isn't about gritting our teeth and just trying harder? What if the real battle is actually happening in our minds? A battle over what we truly, deep down, believe?